Good morning, friends of YouTube. This is your buddy Choppadong coming at you with another video. We're going to do a slate breakdown today. We're going to focus on NHL. I am not concerned with a 4-game slate or a 3-game slate, actually, in the NBA. So that one's off. We've got coaches and contributors inside DFS Army, where I hail from, that do a great job of breaking that down for you. There's a few of us that would rather play hockey. That's me. If that's you, dig in. Let's shoot ourselves another video. But to remind you, DFSArmy.com is where I am a coach and contributor. It's what I do. It's where I dig in and where I provide details and where I talk to people. But I'm not the only coach there. We've got about 18 to 20 coaches in all sports: PGA, NHL, NFL, NBA, baseball when it comes around, NASCAR, EPL, MMA, everything you can possibly think of that's offered for DFS. We're there, and we've got somebody covering it, somebody who's an expert within that field. I tend to focus more on contest selection and bankroll management, but hockey, baseball, and football are my things. NBA, I rely on the other guys to make me a profitable player, which they do, because that's probably one of my most profitable sports. Imagine that. There's not as much variance over there within the day-to-day projections and things. Hockey, man, it's a fluky sport. So when we dig in today, what we're going to tell you is that stay within your bankroll, and we're going to tell you to concentrate, know which slates are bent for a little bit more tournament, a little bit more cash, whatever. Today's a great tournament slate. It's a 3-game slate, and that is a good opportunity to get contrarian, because your game pool and your player pool is so narrowed down that if you go off track, you're only banking on maybe 2 other games to fail or fall flat and your game to take off. That's going to happen a lot more in that small pigeonhole. It's going to happen a lot more often than it would on, say, a 6 or a 10 or an 11-game slate, where if I target one weird game, I need 10 others to fail for mine to go off and win. That's not going to happen too often. The other part about being contrarian, NHL and MLB are perfect sports for it. There's so much, it's such a game of inches. You know, pucks get deflected off of sticks and go over goalies' shoulders like happened last night. Shots ring off the goalpost on wide open nets get missed. All sorts of crazy crap happens. That's just the nature of the game. Guys, tip a puck, it fires out of the zone, and this dude's off on a breakaway, and he's some, chump, third-line chump, and he nets a goal, and the next thing you know, you turn around, and somebody had the random guy because they stacked the third line that night. That happens all the time. It doesn't happen so much where somebody plays the backup point guard, the backup shooting guard, and the backup center, because those guys just don't go off often enough for it to work. It happens in hockey. It happens in baseball that the little bitty leadoff guy comes up with 2 guys on base, runs into one, and hits a home run or a base-clearing triple of some kind. And then the next guy, the 2-hole hitter, is the guy that you have stacked with the 1-hole hitter, and he comes up and he cleans up the bases too by hitting one over the fence, and the next thing you know, you had 3 runners on base, 2 runs scored with a triple and a home run. Next thing you know, you got 28, 30, 40 points, and boom, you flew right up a leaderboard, and you just went to eat dinner and came back and looked at your phone and said, oh, what the hell just happened? I don't know what just happened, but I love it. That's DFS hockey and DFS baseball, and that's why those games are so great for tournaments and for contrarian thinking and stuff, because it happens frequently enough in this sport to reward you. So let's dive in and let's talk a little bit about the chalk so that we know where to go, and let's talk a little bit about getting off the chalk today so that we can set up this 3-game slate. Okay, there's a few things that I'm going to do first. One of the first things that I do about once a week or so, I dive into the NHL stats. I go to NHL.com and I look at the points scored for teams. Who's leading in goals for? Who's leading in goals against? You might want to write these down. Let's see if there's any of them on the slate tonight. We've got Carolina, Washington, Columbus, Buffalo, Calgary, Tampa Bay. Yes, I wrote those down. That's why I can rattle those off. Tampa Bay's on that list. I don't see Washington's on that list. I don't see Columbus. I don't see Buffalo, at least not in the top 10 or so. Carolina and Calgary, don't see them either. So it looks like Washington and Tampa Bay are the powerful offenses. Let's look at goals against. Buffalo is on that list, so Columbus gets a little bit of a bump. Don't really see much else, though. So the other way we can do this, and this is what I prefer to do, that's just a baseline. Tells me typically Buffalo's giving up goals, typically Washington and Tampa Bay are scoring them. I go game by game. I go into December. I go back about a month. I add the results, sum results, run report. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing. Goals for, because this is getting me 10, 11, 12 game samples. Who's hot? Who's running hot? Boston, Winnipeg, Chicago. Nobody playing tonight. Tampa Bay still hot. Good. Tampa Bay checks the box. Minnesota, Toronto, Colorado, all the way down to Carolina. Carolina's 13th, not hot. Not exactly hot. So it looks like Tampa Bay's the offense that we need to probably be focusing on. Okay? Who's giving up goals? Ottawa, New York, Vancouver, Buffalo. Buffalo's back. So Columbus is getting a decent bump. Carolina's giving up goals. So let's see. Carolina's playing Washington. There's a bump for Washington. Let's dive into the line production, and let's look at, say, the last 3 games. We got that called up. I like to do 25 entries just because I like a little bit bigger sample set. I want to see if a couple lines are rolling for a team. When I go by goals for, Vegas, Colorado, Toronto, Boston, Tampa Bay, the Palat line, Palat and Johnson. I don't see the other Tampa Bay line on there. So Palat and Johnson are doing the work. 9 goals in the last, 10 games? So that's about the same sample size, right? So if they're the ones doing the work, who are they going up against? Scroll down to Tampa Bay. Take a look at the Palat line. Being at home, it depends on who they're going to want to target with that first line. Are they going to want to target, Calgary 1 or Calgary 2? But the Palat line is running a little bit hot, and if they catch one of these lines that's giving up goals, and speaking of which, let's run over here to fantasy production. Let's click on giving up goals, goals against. Let's see who's up there. Carolina. Is Calgary on that list? No, because all right, Carolina's up here, and that had both lines on it, did it not? Carolina. The Skinner and the Teravainen line are giving up goals, it looks like. 5 goals and 6 goals, pretty even distribution. So we need to keep that in mind for Washington. But it didn't look like either one of these 2 lines was too terrible. So if you want to run just the Palat line out there, you're probably in a good spot. I will tell you this. This is a little bit of a trick. You got 2 power play 1 units. Guys are on the first power play unit on that second line. There's your cheap exposure to Stamkos and Kucherov. Should those guys go off and start scoring goals again, you've got some exposure to them on that power play. You can run the hot line, Palat, Johnson, point, and you've got exposure here. Put Hedman in there, and you've even got more exposure because Hedman's going to play some with these guys. He's certainly going to play with these 2 on the power play, and Hedman is going to get you your exposure up here to the first line when he's out there with them too. So if you ran Hedman, point or Palat, and then, or both, maybe point Johnson, Palat, Johnson, whatever. Look at their game log. See who's running the hottest on that group. And, maybe run them with Hedman. And now you've got good exposure to this front line if it goes off tonight. And you've got the hot line currently sitting in your lineup too, and cheaper. That's my tip to you. That's where I would probably start tonight. Where would I round it out? Well, it looks like there was no Buffalo's giving up goals, but it didn't look like Columbus was doing anything about it, lately. It doesn't look like they're scoring a ton of goals. So that's fine. And we'll put that in our cap for later. But we're probably going to want to focus on this, the Teravainen line and the Lindholm line. It doesn't matter, does it? They're both giving up 6 goals and 5 goals respectively. So it looks like either one of these 2 lines is in a good spot. So if we can find the hotter line here, Ovechkin's only leading the league in goals. If we go to player stats, we can do the same thing, go game by game, or we can just look at goals for and find Ovechkin right up there at the top. Kucherov's up there at the top, but as we've seen, he's running a little bit cooler lately. If we can find another Washington player, which we can't, that would have been sweet. So either way, if we cut this down game by game, go back into the same time frame we were before, that 10-game sample, back to about the 17th, add the results together, run the report. Who's scoring the goals now? Let's see. Oh, there's Aho. Doesn't look like a ton out there tonight. Who's getting the points? Kucherov's getting points. So he's still in a good spot. Doesn't look like a lot else of obvious stuff, so that's fine. Whatever. We're just going to have to pick some poison tonight because we don't have a lot of games to choose from. I like the fact that my, Ovi is a power play machine. I can get exposure to him with Backstrom, and I can get exposure to him with Carlson, who both are basically main fixtures on that top power play unit in terms of setting up and feeding Ovechkin. If I wanted to, I could get cute, and I could run Backstrom and Kuznetsov as my, center play, and then put Carlson in there with them, get 3 guys on that power play unit with Ovechkin. I don't have to pay up for Ovechkin at that point. I've got good exposure to him at even strength with Backstrom and Carlson, and I've got good extra exposure to him on the power play with Kuznetsov. And if they're in a good spot, Kuznetsov's line might go off against this 2, or if they match up opposite and go against the 1, they might get, they're in a good spot themselves. Also, this number 1 line might run up against either one of these lines. So we know that Washington's in a great spot. We're going to have to consider ourselves, or consider value with ourselves a little bit, because we're going to want to run some exposure down here too. Looks like that's the way to go tonight. You can take a Holtby, you can take a Vasilevsky. Vasilevsky's burned a lot of people lately. He's probably still the better goalie, but he's burned a lot of people lately, so there's going to be a lot of ownership there. Holtby may carry the ownership. Or, if you wanted to, since this game isn't being talked about over here, probably because it's a little bit lower scoring game, when I looked in Vegas, the 5.5 was favoring the under, and it was a -30, which is about the strongest you're going to see favoring the under, which means a lot of the public money is coming in on the under, and well under. So if you look at that, neither team is slated to score 3 goals. That's not going to damage a goalie too much. Landers at home plays better there. Bob is favored, so maybe you go there, take a shot on one of those 2. I still think that Holtby's probably your safer goalie of the night, but he's going to cost you. I mean, if it was between Bob and Holtby, I'd probably take Holtby tonight. But if it was between Holtby and Leonard, now we're talking a little bit. The savings is significant. It'll get me a little bit more of those top-line exposures in the Washington and Tampa Bay offenses. Don't forget to balance it out a little bit with maybe that Carolina line, because when we go back to goals for, didn't we see Carolina, the Teravainen line on there? Sure, they're giving up goals, but they're also scoring goals. So this line here is pretty cheap too. Now, if you're not running Holtby, say you run Bobrovsky or Leonard, then you can come over here, you can run parts of the 1. You can do the whole Backstrom, Kuznetsov, or, Backstrom, Carlson thing, something along those lines, Smith-Pelly for some really, really deep value. And then you can come over here and stack this line and be a smidge contrarian. Because if we're trying to win tournaments, we're going to need to do something nobody else is doing. Contrarian would be running this hot line here, knowing that you're targeting it with these guys, but also running it and hoping for a shootout. Another thing to do would be, well, this offense wasn't talked about much, but, instead of stacking that second line, you come back up here to the top line. Or you run Gord with the 3rd line, you stack that second power play unit and hope it ends up tearing it up. That's a little bit more of a risky play. But, risk, it works in NHL. That's the whole point. Or the ultimate contrarian move tonight in a bigger GPP, should you find one, 5,000, 10,000 people, plan for this game to shoot out. Why? Because both these defenses are giving up goals. Columbus doesn't give up a ton of goals, but they haven't exactly been great lately. Now, you can run, Buffalo's been a shit show lately. You can really end up running a lot of Columbus in this one. Maybe run it back a little bit with these guys, or put Bobrovsky in here with, say, 3 other skaters in Columbus, should you dig into the stats and find who's running hotter right now. And then come in and complete the piece with the rest of the stuff. And now you're super contrarian, because not a lot of people are going to do that. If these 2 games fall flat, goes low scoring, goes like 2-1 or 3-2, and this one 2-1 or 3-2 or 2-0 or 1-1 and ends up in a shootout or some crap like that, you're only counting on 2 games to fall flat. They're in great spots, so they shouldn't, but they might. It's hockey. It does happen. When that happens, and you're over here, and this is the game that puts up 4 goals and goes, 4-2, and you were on this side of it, guess who's sitting up on top of the leaderboards? And here's the thing to think about when it comes to GPPs and long-term thinking and sounder thinking and stuff that we do talk about inside DFS Army, that I'll share one little tidbit with you guys. If I was playing a $3 GPP, and there's 80 games in a year, that's One game, one lineup per night, super contrarian in a $3 GPP. That's $240 across the course of a season. Let's say even 2 seasons. Now I've got $480 in, and this only happens once that I get it right. But I get it so right that I win the $3 GPP and win, say, $6,000. Was it worth the $500 investment? How many years, how many seasons can I play that super contrarian play if I win $6,000 for doing it? 5 years? You know, I mean, that's almost $1,000. So 600 back would be a loss of 400. So what, 3 years? 200, 200, 600? No, if I'm going $6,000, you know, I can do it for a lot longer than that. That's why contrarianism works. The reward for contrarianism is so huge compared to the risk. You don't have to have it hit very often. That's why you let your freak flag fly, man. Is it making sense? These are the kind of concepts that are going to make you bet. Now, am I saying, don't get me wrong, am I saying that you should be a GPP only player? No. Why? Because it isn't going to work very often. And you can't sit your bankroll out there for $400, $500, run this thing for 2 years, hardly ever win anything more than a min cash, and still have your wife be there when you get home at night. She gonna leave. She gonna pack them kids up. She gonna leave. You're gonna be sleeping out on a park bench somewhere or in your mother's basement. Can't have that. So we've got to balance it out. We've got to play some cash and we've got to play some GPP. And with the cash, we play the odds. We play the most likely scenarios to happen because they're going to happen more often than that other crap that we're banking on when we really want to get reckless and really get a little kooky. So we balance the two out. Now, how do you balance it out? That's for VIPs. So that's a perfect spot to end the little bitty video or video blog today. Because if you want to learn how to do that, you got to come into the DFS Army. You got to ask me those questions inside there. I don't give everything away for free. I'm not that stripper dancing on the pole at 2 a.m. when you're throwing dollar bills at her, right? I got a little bit of class left. I got a little bit of pride left. You know, I can still tease you like that stripper. I got to bring you into the DFS Army. And as a reward for listening all the way through this podcast, let's do it this way. Let's throw you a coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Go to dfsarmy.com, follow the link in the comment section. Go to the website dfsarmy.com and search in the general strategy tabs for the ladder system. Become a VIP, use the coupon code CHOP, C-H-O-P. Get yourself a 10% discount off our normal rates, and I know 10% doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a grandfathered in price that never goes up even if our rates do. And I promise you, by NFL next year, our rates will not be $39 a month. Lock that $35 in now, and then just laugh when it's $50 a month. Just laugh, because you're locked in forever, dude. And we have guys in there that were in there from the beginning 3 years ago at like, you know, $10, $15 a month. They are laughing right now because they now have optimizers, tools, spreadsheets, 19 coaches, a bunch of contributors, and they are just laughing at everybody at the knowledge that they have picked up and what they've learned over the past couple of years. A lot of them have popped $10,000 and $50,000 victories in NBA this season. A couple of $250,000, $150,000 winners in NFL this year. Guys, it happens on a daily basis. Learn how to do it. Become a VIP, jump into dfsarmy.com, look me up at Chopadong, out on Twitter, engage, ask me questions. I don't put pressure on people to join. I just tell you that I personally think you're crazy if you don't, because we have assembled the best community in all of DFS. That much I can promise you, and it's worth every penny. Jump in, give us a look. I will see you out here probably tomorrow, if not on Friday. Take care, guys. Well, tomorrow is Friday. That shows you where my mind is. Let's get out of here. See ya.